Oh, yes, I will mute.
Perfect. Now we can hear it. Yeah.
She's driving.
We're good to go. She can hear us, and whenever she needs to speak, she can pipe in, and we'll acknowledge her. So, Chair, we are ready to go.
Greetings and welcome to the November monthly Committee of the Whole meeting, and we're calling this meeting to order at 4:38. I will hand it over to the Assistant Superintendent.
We have to do roll call.
Never mind. Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Of course, Madam Chair. Member Banks.
Here.
Chair Durkeeter.
Here.
Member Loeffler-Kemp.
Here.
Member Lofald.
Here.
I am Member Mikesell. I'm here. Member Sadowski. Here. And Member Williams is excused. Superintendent Magus.
Present.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Present.
And Secretary Brown.
Here.
Roll call is complete.
Thank you for that gentle reminder. Now it is time. I will turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Thank you. But first, I would like to acknowledge and say congratulations to our 4 school board members. So let's give them a round of applause for winning another election. That's for you also, Amber. Member Sadowski. Congratulations. So thank you, everyone. And tonight we are really excited about our presentation for our COW. We have in the audience with us today, we have many administrators, mostly our principals with us today. We are excited about that because they will be sharing some information will be shared about their schools and performance and how we're strategically engaging in efforts that will improve student outcomes and how we do that in a real strategic and systemic way. That's going to be a presentation that's going to be provided by individuals who I will allow Director Sparks to come on up and introduce them and the presentation. So Director Sparks, if you want to come on up and introduce our guest speakers, who would then take the lead?
First of all, I was thinking maybe we might have the principals introduce them.
Absolutely.
So, good evening. I think the first thing we need to do is have all of our special guest school leaders introduce themselves. If you are not familiar with all of them, I thought it would be a chance to get a face with a name and a school. And we'll start right here.
Hi, Nathan Anderson, principal at Stowe Elementary.
Hello, I'm Carrie Thompson, principal at Laura MacArthur. Katie Britton, principal at Piedmont Elementary. Eve Hesser, principal at Lowell Elementary. Lisa Nicholson, principal at Myers-Wilkins Elementary.
Darren Sheldon, principal at Lakewood.
Kathy Cush-Marshall, principal at Congdon Park.
Nathan Glockley, principal at the Area Learning Center and Academic Excellence Online.
Jacob Pinsula, principal at the Care and Treatment Sites, which are Chester Academy, Rock Ridge Academy, Merritt Creek Academy, Superior Academy, Arrowhead Academy, and Bethany Crisis Shelter.
Tom Tuscan, principal at Denfeld High School. Good evening, everybody. I'm Kelly Flog, principal at East High School.
Kristen Kennedy Anderson, principal at Ordine East.
We are missing 3 principals. Anna Cawcutt, Lester Park, had a prior commitment tonight. Tom Cawcutt at Homecroft is out of the country. And Brian Kazmierczak is with Jen Larva presenting at a conference. I forget what town they're in even.
Actually, so they're presenting at the AMELI conference, which is the National Middle School Conference, and they're presenting on the model schedule that we have. So it's a really great exemplar getting out there and promoting for us, and I think it's in Indianapolis.
Oh, yeah, and they're doing that tomorrow, so that's kind of exciting. I am going to have you 3 come up and join me. So tonight, we're going to be talking about MTSS, which I know we've talked about this plenty of times before, but MTSS is simply us having in place multi-layered supports for kids, beginning in the classroom, how we intervene with struggling kids, and then intensive support such as special education usually lives in that area. And so how do we have these layers in place for ourselves in a very systematic way? And so we've been working on that for a long time, but we do have a focus on it right now. As you know, we got the grant last spring, and then we were able to hire a couple people that just solely, they don't solely, they do curriculum instruction, but also 40% of their job is dedicated to the Minnesota MTSS model. And so it's going really well with that. Their job is through the lens of continuous improvement and working with the CITs, the school leadership teams. And so that's what we're going to be sharing with you is the work that the CITs have done in identifying goals aligned to the district. And I'm going to go ahead and let you guys introduce yourselves.
Good evening, I'm Dale Uzman. My role has slightly changed now. I am now overseeing MTSS within elementary and then curriculum and instruction within elementary.
Hi, I'm Julie Stauber. I am the secondary academic MTSS / curriculum instruction coordinator.
So, and I'm Todd McGowan. I am the SEB, so social emotional behavioral coordinator, and I have been here before to talking about PBIS. So it's nice to be back.
Okay, so we are here to give you an update of the action card, an overview of what we're working on for this particular action card. We are working on the implementation of the MN-MTSS model through MDE. And the MN-MTSS model is a little different than regular MTSS because it includes the 5 different components. And the 5 components of the MN-MTSS model are the infrastructure for continuous improvement, family and community engagement, multi-layered practices and supports, assessment, and database decision-making. So the goal of all of this is to braid our initiatives under these components. Here at Duluth, the last few years, they have worked through the semi-DLT, and the semi-DLT is an evaluation of our own implementation practices, our own initiatives. And you can see in 2023, there's the numbers from the self-evaluation. And then 2024, you can see they dipped a little bit, and that was because people started to know a little bit more about it, and they could be a little more critical. And then in 2025, we're hoping things have kind of leveled out and we've learned more. And then we are specifically working on various things to raise all of those components. This year, we are specifically focusing on 5 different things. The first one is our leadership team. We're also looking at Tier 1 instruction, literacy, PBIS, and collaboratively linked teams. So these are the focus areas for our action plan.
Just to clarify, so when we're talking about Tier 1, you've probably heard the phrase teacher clarity in the past. That's something that we've been working on. So when we're talking about Tier 1 within this action card, we're specifically talking about teacher clarity and that process of making sure that students are aware of what is the intended learning of the lesson and how will they be successful in that learning. So the first focus area that we wanted to talk about is our MTSS leadership team. This year we added, this is a new team for the district to our teaming structure. This team will meet monthly. We've already had 2 meetings so far. And this is the team that's going to be responsible for overseeing MN-MTSS implementation for our district. We'll be monitoring the 5 focus areas that you just saw that Julie went over For each of those, we're going to work together as a team to collect data, set goals first on those areas, collect data according to those goals, and then analyze that data as a team, as a system-wide perspective. So we'll be thinking about, like the first one, literacy. We met last month. We had a meeting to talk about what are our goals in literacy? Where are we at K-12? Which isn't something that, while I've been here, we've really taken a step back and thought about what's happening K-12. So now, this month, we'll be collecting some data around literacy, and then at the end of the month, we'll get a chance as a team to really dive into literacy practices K-12.
Yeah, just a quick question, and maybe if you're going to go over it, just tell me that. But so who is all a part of these teams? Not names, but just generally.
No, that's a great question. Thank you. We have the superintendent, assistant superintendent. We have all of the directors attending those meetings. We have the assistant director of special services, all of the principals that come from our identified schools through ESSA, and then Todd is on that team as well, so that we're also covering the social, emotional, behavioral side. Julie and I facilitate that meeting.
So for,
Sorry. Thank you. I'm just wondering at what point we should be asking questions. So should we let the presentation
If we
conclude
can,
and then ask
that
the
would be
questions?
ideal, is to wait until the end.
Okay. I'll wait until the end.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
so for PBIS, we have continually been in a, we have continually been in this state of implementation. So in 2023, we started to complete something called the climate survey, where we offer a blanket survey to all of our staff, children, and families, so that we're taking a temperature of what that daily experience looks like. This is the second year in a row where we've completed what we call bookends. So we're taking a sample in the fall and then again in the spring to monitor and take a look at how are we growing. There are two, primary tools that we use. One is the climate survey, which is, once again, staff, student, and then families, and then something called a tiered fidelity inventory, where we're taking samples of what and how our teaming structures in each of our buildings work, as far as the staff doing the groundwork, to address behavior, to make sure that students are growing through that social emotional lens, and then setting actionable steps to increase the daily experience of our students and families. The other piece that we continue to focus on is what's called Tier 2 implementation, which takes a look at how we're responding to behavioral concerns in all of our buildings. But at this point, we're still monitoring and looking at fidelity of universal interventions, so that all of our kids are getting those social emotional scoops.
One of the other areas is the collaboratively linked teams. We're really focusing in on continuous improvement teams, which is our school leadership teams, and professional learning communities, which are grade level teams or department teams at the secondary. This year, those teams have kind of a big undertaking. Normally at this meeting, we would come to you with school improvement plans completed. The state of Minnesota is moving to a different process for those school improvement plans. Instead of having them ready at the start of the school year and then following that plan throughout the year, they want us to slow things down and take more time to really analyze the data at the school level. So this year, CITs will be conducting a year-long comprehensive needs assessment that's aligned to some state-identified questions. Julie and I are supporting those school leadership teams with this process. They'll take the year to make sure they have all the data they need, analyze that data, And then at the end of the year, they will create their school improvement plan, which will guide their work as a team for multiple years. And they're really going to focus in on one evidence-based practice that they will, as a school team, monitor the implementation of for their whole site. So that process looks very different than it has in the past, which is why tonight we're not coming to you with principals that have completed school improvement plans. Instead, they're going to take their time this year to really dive into that data and be thoughtful about what should that action plan look like. That being said, they will continue to work on their literacy goal. We have to have a literacy goal for the teacher development and evaluation plan. So they will, in a little bit, be available for questions. But at the end of the presentation here, we've listed all of those goals. They'll continue that great work that they've already been doing while they're doing the comprehensive needs assessment. So it's not like they're stopping everything for a year. I just want to make sure I clarify that. They're not stopping all of the great things that they're doing at their sites. They're just taking a little bit more time this year to really think through what are the needs of the site and what does the action plan look like to address those needs.
And I'm just going to add a little bit. Dale's used to me doing that. It's a 3-year cycle, and it aligns with the identification cycle. So I think back in August or September, we had a presentation for you on the identified schools and the historicals of that. This is year 1 of that cycle. That's why it's a year-long process of the comprehensive needs assessment, which will lead into year 2 and year 3. At the end of year 3, that's when we have an identification again. So just wanted to, this is part of the cycle of that 3-year process.
So this graphic was a brainchild of Brenda's. This came out of, in August, we had a continuous improvement team retreat. So we brought in all of the school continuous improvement teams and worked with them for the day to start getting them set up for success for this year as they get started with their meetings and the comprehensive needs assessments. And something we talked a lot about with them is that we have all of these great things as adults that we're doing. What does that translate into as far as student outcomes? So as we're having that conversation, Brenda created this great graphic that shows all of the things that we've really been focusing on a district, which are all adult behaviors. And our theory of action there is that with all of these great things that we're doing as adults, that's going to translate into a positive impact on student outcomes. So we're as a system, we're starting to slowly move away from always setting goals that are student achievement goals. And because it's great to have that, but how are we going to get there? And really starting to think about what are the adult actions that we're going to put in place to be able to reach those student outcomes. So on this graphic, we've starred the adult behaviors that the MTSS leadership team will be monitoring. Those are the things that we'll be collecting data on and analyzing and then adjusting our plan as we go along. The ones that are not starred will be monitored by other principal teams, like the instructional leadership teams or Principal Plus. That being said, for the teacher development and evaluation plan, we do have to have goals that outline student achievement scores. So I'm not sure if you've seen this before for this year, but this is this year's district goal. And just like we did last year, we've tiered out that goal so that all of our teachers can see themselves in that goal. Before, we had one goal for kindergarten through 12th grade, and that often we felt difficult for everyone to be able to see the role that they played in achieving that goal. So last year, Director Sparts and Director Larva took time to really tier this out so that each of those grade level bands can see themselves in the goals. And I wanted to make sure we talked about this because as you're looking at the individual site goals, quite a few of the elementary sites chose to follow this model, and they tiered out their goals so that their teachers could really see themselves in that goal and that data. And so as you look at those goals, you'll see some of them with an asterisk behind it, and that's just letting you know that we just summarized those tiered goals, but there are individualized goals based on grade level bands. When you're taking a look at the elementary goals, you'll notice that all of the elementary schools made sure to use assessments that are evidence-based, that the state of Minnesota has approved and made sure are valid and reliable. Those are our fast bridge assessments or the MCAs, the state standardized test. Like I said, some of those schools chose to tier their goals, just like the district's goal. So you'll see some of those up there that have an asterisk after them for that purpose.
And there is a link to those tiers as well for the elementary. The secondary goals, we have, it's a combination. We have, some of the sites are focused on some of those standardized student outcome tests. And then some of them are focused on adult behaviors because we've been talking a lot about adult behaviors. So some of the secondary sites decided to write their literacy goal based on the adult behaviors that they were looking for. So we have a combination of some that are using those standardized tests, assessments, and then some that are just focused on adult behaviors in order to achieve higher student outcomes. The, just as the ALC AEO goal was updated since we submitted the presentation. So this is the goal that has been updated. They wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive into their data so that they could write this goal instead. So this is different than what the hard copy is that you have. Any questions?
And we do have our principals in the back in case you have any site-specific questions for them as well. They knew that they needed to come prepared to answer any questions.
Thank you, and really appreciate that. And so I want to say thank you to the team for working on this and our principals. And just to, you know, as you see in the documents, that schools are focused on identifying goals to improve reading outcomes for kids, math outcome for kids, focused on improving the social emotional needs of students, whether it's improving attendance and all of the above, right? And improving graduation rates and so forth. So those things are a part of what we do. And so the framing of things through the Minnesota MTSS process is the approach, the strategic approach that we are using to get there. And I want to thank the team for laying that out, but I want to make sure the board is aware of, well, how are all of these things connected and how are we pulling all of the levers to improve student outcomes, because we have not lost sight of that. We know it's important to use data. We know it's important to involve our students. We know at the end of the day, it comes down to the staff we have in the buildings and how they collaborate and work together, whether it's our principals working with each other, whether it's our teachers working in collaborative teams with each other to, you know, discuss units of study, discuss what they're going to do to improve instruction in the classroom for those students, whatever the room may be, that they have to work together. We as a district have provided time for them to do so in our professional development opportunities where they can receive ongoing coaching and support and training on a variety of things. So there's a lot of things that we're doing as a district to, again, improve outcomes, and I want to thank the team. And the principals are here to field questions as, you know, as you request. But we'll start off with Member Banks with your first question.
Thank you very much. So as I was reading this, I'm going to ask you to please tell me a little bit more about the multi-tiered practices and supports. But before you do that, I'm going to ask, what does all of this look like as it relates to our diverse learners in the district? What does that look like for them? What types of culturally relevant or significant educational resources are you using to adequately educate our diverse learners? I'm very concerned about that, very interested in knowing what you're using because everything needs to be culturally relevant and significant. And so I'd like to find out what's being done in our schools. And I'm asking these questions, I'm addressing it that way as it relates to cultural, relevant, educational opportunities in all of our schools for all of our kids. And I'd just like to know what kind of tools you're using. Thank you.
I think I can speak to a couple of them, but anyone else jump in. First, within literacy, I really appreciate that the new Minnesota State Standards has standards specifically written within them that address students reading works from multiple perspectives, culturally diverse perspectives, and having then to discuss and really dive into those pieces of literature. I know at the secondary level, we've incorporated some new resources that are updated and aren't 30 years old that have those texts in them. We just during our professional development day on Monday with our elementary teachers, we had elementary teachers diving into texts that were from the Ojibwe perspective, and then having to have conversations about how they would use those in the classroom, how they would talk about those Ojibwe perspectives, because that's part of the standards. Another thing that I'm also excited about when we're looking at that new comprehensive needs assessment, there are questions in that comprehensive needs assessment that sites are really going to have to wrestle with that speak directly to that. One of them specifically is, what does the teaching staff look like in your school, and does it reflect the demographics of the students at your school? Another one is, what are the supports in place for all of your student groups so that we're not, that's why I'm excited about them going through the whole year-long process, because it really is going to force our sites to grapple with some of these tougher conversations and look at what the data really is saying.
Just one addition in, we are also, there are new ELA standards that Dale mentioned, which address culturally relevant topics for our teachers and students. We had the cultural competency PD just the other day with Ricky White for the secondary site, and he's coming back again in December for everybody in the secondary schools. And I know that each site is working on culturally relevant initiatives as well. Maybe you wanna-
I'm going to move it closer. But one of the things that we have been focusing on and is a part of the climate survey is cultural acceptance. We are slowly moving from quantitative data to qualitative data where we are measuring numerically, right? Like, do you feel seen? Do you feel heard? Are you, honored in each of our buildings? The biggest lift that we have for that PBIS lens is to now get qualitative data on the richness of why or why not students are feeling disconnected. And then how does that contribute to that sense of belonging, which are indicators of future achievement.
Thank you for the clarity. I appreciate it.
Member Loeffler-Kemp.
Yeah, just a couple general questions, and thank you for answering that first question on the team. That just allowed me to, as you were presenting, know who was a part of the whole discussion and that, so I appreciate that. You had mentioned that it's with the CIT teams that this is new by the state, and you're talking about MDE state, right? Okay, okay. And then you also talked about district goals in reading and working with the teachers. Has it been through professional development days you've gotten that buy-in? How have we gotten the buy-in across the district, across each grade levels?
Well, as you know, we've been doing a lot of literacy work because it's important, also because of the READ Act. We haven't had a lot of choice. It's been a good push. So we have a lot of our elementary, specifically educators, who are finishing up letters. So something that we've done within elementary this year is we've taken a lot of those best practices that we've learned from letters and brought that into our English language arts curriculum, our reading curriculum, which was something specifically that those teachers asked for because they were starting to have that realization of, oh, I haven't necessarily been doing this the right way. This has been really great learning, but now how do we fit it into what we're doing in the classroom? So we have a really great group of teachers who are leading this work at the elementary level. And they're taking a lot of time to look at our reading curriculum and are fitting in those best practices that we learned about within letters. So there's that natural buy-in that's starting to happen because the things that they've been asking for to bring into the curriculum is happening because they're doing all of this learning. Does that address?
Yep,
Okay.
thank you, thank
Yes.
you.
Member Lowfoot?
So thank you. Thanks for all of you being here as well. It would be great, not right this minute, but maybe a principal would come forward and maybe share something about Member Banks's question, like a story, like an example, like, you know, what do you know has done that? That would be kind of cool. My 2 or 3 questions all revolve around this slide about the 5 action plans. So my first question is, out of those 5, I know that we've been doing MTSS for quite a few years, and especially our elementary staff have really, they were the first ones trained and using and working with. Out of those 5, which one is the most new element that's now in the Minnesota MTSS that wasn't in ours? My guess would be family engagement.
Yes, I also think so. Someone can correct me if not. But if you actually take a look at our scores on the semi-DLT, I think you'll see that that's one that we've consistently ranked lower on. And it's because of that.
Okay.
It's a newer element. The sites have all done a great job of focusing on how they're bringing in families and working with the community. But at the district level, that's kind of an area of need for us to be thinking about how are we doing that systematically as a district. So that's why you'll see that that score has generally been lower, and that's a reason why we actually are stepping into a training next week, I think, from Compass to start thinking about what should family and community engagement look like at the district level, and then be able to support our sites.
And when you connect that to how we, again, reach all families, especially the diversity that exists in our community, this is where that focus comes in, because that's where you're going to get the stakeholder engagement. How are we really going out in the community, seeking input in a variety of ways, going to families, going to different communities, trying to listen to their voices, to their stories on what they are desiring for their sons and daughters and for students. Just know that the way MTSS, Minnesota MTSS has broken it out, it's really just really pulled it together and I'll say put it into buckets or just really key areas. And this is where you can find, or we can find, how we're going to then focus on engaging all families in a variety of ways. How we go about improving outcomes and looking again at data. Data is important. We know some of our schools have data sets that says different things. Some of our schools, our students are doing well. Some of our schools, students are not. How are schools looking at that data strategically, looking at the students who are doing well, right? The students who are either students with special needs, by gender, by socioeconomic status, all of the above, right? It's taking a hard look at the data and making decisions on then who gets, based on the data, interventions and supports, right? In that layering of supports, and that's why you see the multi-layered practices and supports. That's where the interventions come in, using the data to determine who should receive supports and those, those second and third doses of support. So this is just a really good system to really pull this together for us, and the team has been doing a really good job of walking our building principals and staff through this together. Chair Derek Eater. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Just, again, like this year, you're collecting the data, so my question for my principals would be, are you then just going to continue with what we have been doing in our MTSS and our teacher clarity, just kind of so that the data that you collect is really based on what has been happening over these last years? I'm seeing a lot of yeses, so that the data you collect, is kind of authentic to build on, because if you're trying to address all of those 5 areas at the same time, okay, good deal. And then adult behaviors. That's just a new term, and I'm not clicking on it. I don't know what that, I mean, I can see what you're listing as adult behaviors, but I don't get it.
So here's the deal. So when we talk about measures, MCA results, right? We're talking about the end result of a lot of input. We did a lot of things to get this measurement. So we're kind of backing that up and saying proactively, this is the outcome. So before we get that MCA measurement, what are the things that the teacher choices, the school choices, the district choices that we're going to make to get the biggest impact with increasing student outcomes? Because when we talk about data, we're talking about adults have already done a lot of planning, done a lot of execution, done a lot of instruction. Kids are learning and doing all these things. Then we're measuring them. So we're talking about all those things that we're going to be doing before we measure the kids, having a bigger impact. So all the adult decisions that we put into instruction, those are important. And so we're kind of focusing there.
Does that kind of resonate still? No problem.
Is it a term that's coming out of, out of the people leading the MTSS at Minnesota one, and
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, okay.
Well, somewhat inside.
I can remember all of the things that we were doing when I was in the classroom too, all the different theories, all the different programs, and they all had their unique, terms, and so I'm getting it, but I just thought adult behavior.
I'm
Okay,
sure it's been
following it.
researched somewhere as well, but it's about just,
You guys know it.
it's it's just the practices, the behaviors, the disposition. Those are the things we're talking about when we talk about adult behaviors, like how are they thinking about kids when it's time for instruction? Do you consider all of the kids in your classroom, right? Consider them as human beings and what they come with before you make that instructional decision on, simple thing on what book you're going to do as a read aloud, or what book you're going to select in the classroom at a high school level for kids to actually have a choice to read. Have you thought about those things? Those are adult behaviors or adult actions, because you have to be real mindful of everything you do as the adult in that classroom is going to make a difference, right? To either
So this is
improve or
on the
not.
teacher and not students. We're not trying to give students the outcome of reaching out to adult behaviors as best we.
No, this is
on the teacher.
us.
So talk
This
about
is
teacher
us
clarity,
as a
because
system.
this board member is not getting the clarity, but that's okay. I will trust all of you. I just thought it maybe would be an easier understanding for me, but
No, and thank
I'll
you for
listen.
asking the question, because
on the teacher.
others might have the same question, like, what does that mean, adult behaviors? And no, it's on the decisions we make on behalf of kids, planning for them, and making sure that we're capturing all the kids, and we have all these resources that are culturally, like, we're putting all of this into our system. And that's a lot of decisions being made at the school levels, at curriculum instruction level, so, yeah, teacher level.
If you don't mind, I can.
Agenda Magus and then Chair Derek Eater.
Can I elaborate on this because it's a connection. As we were saying, it's really about what is it that we as staff members, what is it that we as teachers are doing differently to impact kids, thinking about what is within our individual sphere of influence. Because I think sometimes historically, people have blamed other factors. Oh, if the parents were more involved, or if our kids weren't so poor, or X, Y, or Z. But we want to see what is it that instructionally we're going to do differently in the classroom? What is it behaviorally we're going to do differently in the classroom? Those are the adult practices or the adult behaviors that if they change, that's what tips that teeter-totter. And so, and really, it's all of us. And thinking about the work we do, we've talked about the strategic plan being from classroom to boardroom and boardroom to classroom. Our behaviors matter too. So what happens through this structure is an individual teacher will change their practice of how they're teaching kids so that they'll have different outcomes. Then they go to a professional learning community where they all work together and talk about what is it that we're doing, how are we changing our behaviors and our practices so the outcomes are different for kids. And then those PLCs, professional learning communities, are reporting up to the continuous learning teams. They talk about, as a school, how are we changing? What do we need for professional learning? Let's talk to the district about what we're doing too and what we need. And then we, as district administration, have to shift how our practices are better serving the kids and better serving the schools and better serving the PLCs and continuous improvement teams. Then we need to take it to you as a school board and say, this is our strategic plan. This is the new curriculum that we want to adopt, or this is what we're doing professional learning, or this is how we want to align our budget with the needs through the system. And then you change policy, you set the budget, and you have adult behaviors that then support what the schools, what the district is doing and what the schools are doing and what the individual teachers are doing to impact the students. So it's that through line up and down the organization. And I am so proud of our leaders and our staff and our students and us as a board that we have a strategic plan in place that does that. And this is where the rubber meets the road and practices really start to change. We're seeing outcomes with better graduation rates and better student outcomes, but I really believe that this is just the beginning, that this is going to, once you have that through line of supportive accountability, we can change the way that we work with kids and the way we work as adults so that we have better outcomes for all of our kids.
Chair Derek Eater.
I just wanted to compliment, I love the change of lens. Instead of we constantly talk about measuring kids and we never measure, never is, you know what I mean? We rarely measure ourselves as adults. So I think this is a great idea. And then I think it's as you teach, as you grow in your craft, as you're a teacher, it allows you to measure yourself. How are your practices impacting? How am I changing this? And I think it is a great way for us as a district to take responsibility for the learning that our kids happens. We look at MCAs and we want to say, oh, this number of kids didn't pass or this number. I just love that lens change. I love measuring what we're doing in the classroom to see the impact and then having goals that are talking about the adults and what we're doing as opposed to what the kids are doing. So I think this is just a fantastic way to look at it. So thank you for this work.
And Member Lofa, thank you for the question because, with the team, they know one of the things I keep always bringing up is how are we going to explain this not only to the board, but more importantly, how are we going to explain this Minnesota MTSS thing to the community and to our families who are saying, my kid isn't graduating on time or my kid is still reading below grade level. What are you actually doing to improve outcomes? And so your question and really helps us continue to clarify that answer and just gain some clarity and how we're going to approach that with our community, right? Because if our board is having great questions, we know families are going to be asking, how are you really doing this? Member Mikesell and then Member Loeffler-Kemp.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here. I'm pleased to see our district goal has had some wordsmithing to state that we're going to make incremental progress every year. Because when I look back at our 2024 Comprehensive Achievement and Civic Readiness Report and the goals that we had there, it was very much like, by next year, every kid will be reading on grade level. And I always found that to be almost disheartening, because recognizing if we have some schools or some portions of our school community that are struggling to go from, a very low percentage to a high percentage in 1 year, and then feeling like you failed because that was an unrealistic goal to have. So I appreciate that we're fine-tuning that process, and I'm hopeful to actually hear from our principals who have taken some of their time tonight to be with us, so that we're not just staring at you in a fishbowl, to hear a little bit more about the process at your sites, and how you're leading the staff, the support you're receiving, to hear if this is something. I imagine that literacy is always the goal and has always been the goal for all of the time that we've had schools. So this isn't necessarily like rocket science new, but it's obviously a different lens than has been happened previously. And so just would love to hear from someone a little bit more about your experience at your site.
So we'll give them a couple minutes to think about it while we take member.
And I will
Oh,
have two other
Oh, you
questions.
do? Okay.
But we can do this first.
Well, that'll give them time, even more time to think about, come on up. So your questions, Member Mike, so then I'll come over to you.
I'll go ahead and say this, so that someone might be able to keep this within their comments. Wondering what other outside factors. Obviously, we're doing a lot of training for our staff. We're doing a lot of support from the administrative level to our principals, trying to roll these things out. But things that aren't necessarily involved in curriculum or instructional changes, things like classroom sizes, things like our kids coming to school ready, being fed, those kind of things. If you're seeing any other kind of outside influences that are possibly making it easier to do this or making it more difficult to do this, I would love to hear if anyone has that kind of a comment. And then before I forget, Executive Assistant Brown, if we could upload the updated slideshow, because the ALC-AO goal still shows the old one on board book. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Nathan Golke, Principal Golke.
Actually, the old goal is actually the new goal. We were just kind of ahead of the curve because we wanted to implement adult behaviors now rather than wait till the end of the year. And so we actually got a head start to it, but we had to change it just because we were supposed to kind of wait for that process to unfold. But we figured, why wait to help kids if we know what they need right now? And so that's why that goal has changed. It's actually the appropriate goal to be in there, but so just for clarification. So what we did just this past Monday is been working with Denfeld and with East, and we're implementing a PLC with our school within a school at East, our school within a school at Denfeld, and our seat-based program at the ALC. And the reason why we're doing that is because if we can stop a student from failing at the traditional site, then they're not going to have to come to the ALC to make up credit recovery. And so trying to flip that triangle to make it more manageable so that we're not having to deal with so many kids needing credit recovery. And so that's an adult behavior that everybody is doing, collaborating with Denfeld, with East, to intervene early on when kids are failing. And so how this will play out, you'll take a kid who is taking English 10 at East, and so they fail. What can we do first quarter as grades are just getting posted so that they don't have to wait until summer school to take up and make up a class? And so we're partnering with them and providing content and curriculum so that a student can catch up what they missed in first quarter and then continue in their second quarter and then pass the class, okay? And so it's very disheartening if a kid has 4 fails at first quarter, like what's the point? And that's when kids really disengage. And so early intervention is key, and so that's just one way we're partnering with the high schools. And like I said, we didn't want to wait until next year to do it. Let's do it now and work out some of the kinks so we can help kids be successful right now. So that's an example.
I'm going to call on somebody to come up here. Mr. Anderson, you want to come on up? Mr. Anderson is doing something really cool at his school, and it's kind of ahead of other schools doing this, where they're saturating grade levels during the day for intervention practices, but I'll let you talk about that.
All right, thank you. So just answering one of the questions, I think it was you that asked about how we're digesting our improvement. We look at that, we love that tiered approach, and our CIT team really looks at that, and then we look at our data specifically, and then we just really chew on that. And then we come up with, well, this seems reasonable for us. So it really seems manageable, and that's really positive for our teachers, because in the past, it has been so unrealistic, like all students are gonna be performing at grade level. So that's been really helpful, and then we can look back and see progress or growth, and that's been really positive. So that's been really appreciated from a elementary setting, I know. But what our team is doing right now, a big school improvement effort is, we're doing an all-hands-on approach to help support our readers. We have what we call win time in our schools, what I need. We have a reading win. And traditionally what we've been doing is having our special ed teachers pull special ed students out. We've had our title teachers pulling students out. And then the gen ed teachers are doing small groups with the students left behind. But what we're doing is really assessing all the kids at the same grade level. And we have our special ed teachers, title teachers, reading interventionists, and then even a para and general ed teachers. We're looking at the kids, what they truly need, breaking them up, and we aren't categorizing them as title students, as special ed students. And then we're dividing them truly by what they need. So we have 6 to 7 adults going into a grade level, and we're really getting some nice small groups, and we're seeing some real positive gains with that. And teachers are excited. We started piloting this last year with our 5th grade group, and we saw, just with that grade, with that cohort, we saw 16% of our students move to achieving on the MCAs, which is a big improvement. Teachers see that, and everyone else wanted to start doing that. So now we're going 6th or 5th grade down through kindergarten with all that approach. And I know Dale was at our site yesterday, and we're just processing how things are going. And I have to say I'm really proud, and I know our school is super excited to do our winter monitoring just to see the growth that we've made kindergarten through 5th grade.
Great.
The one thing I have to say about that meeting, I came away with one quote that really stood out to me. The teachers were talking about how it no longer feels like these are your students or these are your students. It now feels like these are all of our students. And that came out of a teacher, and that was my biggest takeaway, truly, seeing the team collaboration and all of them coming together and talking about students. I'm really excited as well to see what that data looks like, and just the growth that's going to happen at Stowe because of this model.
I want to make sure I will go to Member Lawfully Kemp then.
Thank you again. Those were great examples, and it made me think that when principals, when we start setting up our intentional visits that we've started the last couple of years, and we gave you a couple months here to get into the school year before we started doing that, but it'll be great to have you touch on some examples like this while we're out there on any of these areas that you want to celebrate with us or share with us. I had one question about this whole list, and the first one that had to go with high school grading and assessment. And I was just curious, as part of that is to make sure it's consistent, teachers and staff are consistently grading across the district similar? Is that a big piece of that?
So this year, I know that they've done some work on grading and assessment in the past. This year, we have developed a task force, and the task force is really just at the very beginning stages. There was a survey last year. The task force got together and examined that data and tried to find some of the themes that were coming out of that. And then through discussion, they started looking at, what's our next step? What could we possibly do next to kind of start bringing some of these things together? Because what it really showed was a lot of inconsistencies. So they said, number one, we need better data and more data. So they wanted to, worked on a survey. And so we shared some of the findings, just the general ideas that were coming out of the first survey, and then prepared a survey that we could get some more specific data. And then we have another meeting coming up where we're going to start looking at this now that we can kind of decipher it a little bit better, and start diving into the research about grading and assessment. What are the best practices, and what is our next step? As a task force, what can we recommend so that we can have more consistency across the board?
Great, thank you. And I know on other things on this list, we've already had a number of COW presentations on. So for principals, if you don't know, we've heard about all of these in different COW meetings over the last few months and that. So that was just one I hadn't remembered getting an update on recently. The only other quick question right now I have was also around family and community engagement. And, that's something I've done a lot of work on as well, and my hat's with the PTA and statewide and that. And so I will just be curious in getting more updates on what is that going to look like that's different? What is it going to look, what research-based models are you going to be using? And what kind of community supports are we going to continue to work with? I know we work with many already, but so that one will be one I'll be very interested in getting a lot of updates on. And I know it's going to look different at every school. And I have all the confidence and faith in our principals and different groups that they're working with in the schools that it will look different based on the needs of each school. But I guess I just want to lift that one up for wanting more information on.
No problem, and that's going to come to you in February. So look for a presentation on family engagement in February. Superintendent Magus?
Of course, right? No, I just wanted to offer it up to our principals again. There's lots of great work being done in our schools, and we had a couple of great examples, but if there was anybody else that wants to share something that they're doing at their sites, we're more than glad to hear, so feel free to step on up.
Hi, Eve Hessler, principal at Lowell. We had an experience last spring where we did this day in the life, and we followed maybe 4 special education students throughout the whole day and kind of graphed and collected data on what their day looked like. There were some kind of eye-opening takeaways. But the biggest one was that a lot of our special education students are not kind of cognitively participating in the grade level instruction. Like they're there, we've made it a big point for them to be there, but they're not able to access that grade level instruction. So this year, with some of the changes in scheduling, we dropped our win times to just 30 minutes, which is like intervention time, which opened up a bunch of chunks of time for our intervention team. And so now they're really pushing in for, 20, maybe 30-minute chunks of time, and they're sitting with, in the whole classroom, and they're sitting with special education students and helping them engage in whatever the classroom teacher is teaching. And we had, just the other day, one of the interventionists, she's going to be going through her evaluation coming up, and she mentioned that this student, because she's working with her, supporting her doing writing every day, the student wrote a whole page. And when she told me that, I just got goosebumps, and then later on, near the end of the day, that teacher came with the student to me, and the student showed me her page writing that she did, and she was so proud, and the teacher was back there in the background, and, it was one of our American Indian students. So, just trying to engage our special education students in that grade level instruction is just kind of like this huge eye-opening thing that I think we're all trying to do, and this is just a small way that we're attempting to do that. I will say that the splits at Lowell make it very, very difficult. And a split means we have second and third graders in one classroom and fourth and fifth graders in one classroom. So trying to get the fourth graders the same amount of instruction and the fifth graders the same amount of instructional time is difficult. We also have the interventionists are trying to support during that time too. So kids with the teachers with the fourth graders, the interventionists are supporting fifth graders to keep learning grade level things because they're not super independent. And then so the splits make it difficult. Also, we have some class sizes that make it difficult, as I know some other places do. But the languages also make it difficult because we have 3 languages going on. But this year, something really cool, in our Masabekong program, it's really difficult to do phonemic awareness because they've created everything they have. And the Ojibwe language isn't as easy to play around with the phonemes. So we have the interventionist pushing into Masabekong, and she's doing about 10 to 15 minutes of English phonemic awareness. So the kids are working on phonemic awareness with the words they know. And then the Masabekong teacher is then doing it in Ojibwe. So they're familiar with the routines with the language they understand, and then they can make those connections with Ojibwe. So a lot of that feels good, and it's also really hard, but the staff they're willing to try new things, which is a big adult behavior change. So.
Member Lawford-Camp?
Yeah, and just to follow up, Ivo, you're here. How many split classes do you have at Lowell?
4.
So 4 different classrooms?
Yeah, there's a second and third grade Spanish, a second and third grade English, a second and third grade Masabekong, and a fourth and fifth grade English. One of the Masabekongs is because we couldn't find a teacher.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for that. One of my children was in a split class, so I'm very familiar how it works. And it was great experiences both her years, just to let you know, not at Lowell, but at a different school. Let's see, I had one other question for you. I can't find it right now, so thank you. I can't wait to come and visit.
Seeing no additional lights on, I want to, I'll give it up to the team to do a closing, or?
Yeah, I mean, we just appreciate you all coming this evening. We're usually alone here, so this is awesome. It's just, yeah, so when you go, please do ask a lot of questions of our schools. Each one of them is doing very unique programming according to the kids sitting in their classrooms. And it's really impressive to see all the efforts going on in the schools.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Just a huge thank you all for being here, and some of us have had a lot of opportunity to be out talking to a lot of parents at their homes over the last few months, and lots of great things have been heard about the good start of school this year and about how things are going in our schools. So just a huge thank you for being here, but also for what we're hearing out at the ways we've been out in the community. So thank you.
Chair, I would like to, go ahead. I see people moving.
Yeah, we can just, can we just take a minute?
Nope, no problem.
Okay.